Welcome to the Embodied Business Show. I am back with another episode. This one I think is going to get a wee bit juicy because we're going to be talking some deep strategy and business as well as everything that goes with that. So welcome, Christine. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Embodied Business. I am super excited too. Now, you've been playing in this realm for a little bit, is my understanding, right? We've just recently connected on Instagram and you play with high ticket sales and business mindset. So when it comes to this world, you are fully all over it with allowing people to fully be themselves and show up and get paid for it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Embodiment's a massive piece, right? When it comes to sales and backing yourself and confidently charging effectively for your business so you're profitable, right through to like showing up online and selling yourself. Like when it comes to being successful in business, I love that you talk about the embodiment piece because it is such an important piece that I think some people don't really get. Like I think it's that piece that people can get stuck in the place of like doing all the things and hustling, but if you're not fully embodying all of it. So when I think about embodiment, I think about your thought processes, your mindset, right through to your heart being in it and you're emotionally connected to what you're doing, right through to the action actually backing up what you're saying you're going to do. So I love the embodiment piece. Yes, been in it for a while, been in business about 7.5 years now and was in a sales role way before. I was in corporate years before that, doing and teaching sales teams. So I feel like business is that huge personal development piece that kind of makes you look at every part of yourself. And no matter how confident you were before, like business actually brings all your fears and doubts to the surface. And so it's one of those things that the embodiment piece has to come back and play. You have to play with it consistently.
Yeah, I speak to so many people all the time and they're like, how can you charge what you charge and be so confident in it? And it's that particular piece. So I love that we're going to open this conversation right up today because I have this conversation, I swear to God, daily with my clients, right? Like it's the imposter syndrome. It's the how do I show myself fully and be seen and received without all the things that get in the way of that. And so being this is your jam, I would really love to start by opening with this. Why do you think so many people feel like they can't charge what they're actually worth or what they think they're worth?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of mindset stuff that comes into play here, as well as like self-focused mindset stuff. So it's like, well, it's so many things from, it comes naturally to me. I'm just something that it's easy for me to do. So why should I charge well for it? Or there's the starving artist, or there's the belief systems that because we love it, we shouldn't charge well for it. There's so much mindset stuff that comes into play when it comes to that. Plus then there's the money side. So we have a lot of money mindset blocks. So if we've got a belief system around money that we have to, like you're not allowed to receive money or money is dirty or we have to really work hard for money, like all our money blocks come and actually play into our ability to charge well. And then the third piece is actually pricing strategy. Like when it comes to charging well for your business, I think that if we've come from a 9-to-5 employee role, then we have been trained to believe that we be paid by time. So we spend a certain amount of time and we get paid for that time. So the employee mindset starts to play into it as well. So that's why it's like a perfect storm of stuff that causes us to prevent us from charging really effectively. And so I love working with women to help support them with uncovering what are those self-sabotaging mindset blocks that are preventing you from really owning your value and believing in yourself and backing yourself. What are the money blocks that are preventing you from charging effectively and being able to receive money from a beautiful equal value exchange? And thirdly, what should you be charging? Because you need to be really considering where you're pricing yourself in the market, but also that you're profitable. Like, so I know a lot of coaches talk about like hitting 10K months, but my concept or my perception around this is you should want to earn 10K months, because if you're not earning at least 10K per month in a business, you probably don't have any money left over and you're probably putting yourself into the ground and you're probably not investing back in your business because it's the bare minimum. Once you take tax away from that, there's not much left. So I'm a big believer of like, let's just work through our money blocks, because a lot of the stuff is, especially women that I work with, there's a lot of feminine blocks around money, because we didn't even, like as women, we weren't even allowed to have a bank account up until 1974. We weren't allowed to have a business until we were like in 1983. Like we haven't had a lot of rights when it comes to money for a really long time. And even though, even if you weren't born before then, it's still embedded in your DNA as a woman. Like it's passed down to generation to generation. So there's a lot of stuff that prevents us from really charging what we're worth. But once we play with those three things and actually get to the point of developing that mindset mindset that supports you, and then back yourself with a really good pricing strategy, the world is your oyster. Like you can absolutely earn great money, love what you do, and consistently have an ability to serve yourself, your family, and give back to community.
I love that so much. I was actually talking about this at, I had my embodied business immersion on the weekend, and that's a lot of the goals that people come into me with it. And I was like, all right, let's do the math on this. Like, let's break it down. And I was like, for you to actually, like, we worked out exactly what this woman wanted, like my client wanted, and what she said she wanted. And there was a $250,000 gap there from 10K months to, like, it was 270K or something she had to earn in order to receive the lifestyle that she actually desired, where she wasn't in scarcity, where she wasn't like running this. And this is the thing that a lot of people aren't aware of, is like, what does it actually take to run a successful, powerful business?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you're bringing this in, because so many people get caught up in this. Now, the one thing I really want to touch on, because you teach specifically the confident closing method. Tell me a little bit about that.
So over the years of working with women in business and working on their sales strategy and their mindset, there's certain things that I found have come along to support them to be able to be confident closers. So what I mean by that is creating consistent income in their business, where they're not at the point where they're like, oh my God, where do I find my next client from? Like, when they're stuck in that feast and famine or the roller coaster income that can often happen, there's three core elements when it comes to the confident closing method. You've got to have the right mindset. You've got to have the right mindset, great, positive, abundant money mindset. You've got to believe in the value that you deliver, and you've got to be confident in having a confident sales mindset as well, because we didn't even talk about the sales mindset piece. Like, the sales mindset piece can prevent us from really showing up and promoting ourselves, because we're so fearful of being salesy or sleazy or pushy, when really sales is just a conversation. So there's understanding, like, having the positive mindset. Secondly, it's understanding the sales process. So sales is a process. It's understanding the decision-making process that someone goes through when they're considering an investment. And if you understand that process, you can take a client through that process, and it's much more enjoyable and integrous. I must highlight that as well. It's actually within integrity. You're not pushing anyone. You're not manipulating or influencing anyone. You're presenting an offer. You're inviting people in to go after the solution that they're looking for and purchase that solution, or take action towards the desire that's really important to them. There's an invitational piece. So if you understand the process, it makes it much easier and less awkward and icky. And the last piece with being confident closing in your business is actually having a strategy. Most of the time, people don't have sales strategies in place for their business. They have a marketing plan, and they're executing, and they're doing all the things when it comes to marketing, but they have no way of actually knowing, well, hang on, what's my way of converting all of these eyes that I have in my business? How am I then convincing or leading people to make a decision to work with me? And so building in a sales strategy is so key. And so the majority of people that I work with, and I have people come to me and I actually unpack what's happening for them in their business. And I'm like, I want to know why, what's missing? Like, what's the missing piece? Why are you not earning good money in your business? Is it the mindset? Is it not understanding sales? Because it is a skill. You do need to develop a skill as a business owner. Or is it that you're actually not executing on any strategy? Is there no plan? Is there no structure? Is there no sales system? And what are the consistent habits that will actually help you achieve that strategy? So it's blending the logical with the mindset, with the emotional. It's building it all together so it supports the outcome of having consistent income in your business.
I love that so much. One thing I say all the time is, business is just a skill set, right? Who we be in business is the person who implements that skill set and determines where the outcome goes to, I should say.
Yeah.
And, it's really important, I think, because I was talking with another client this morning, and I was saying to her, like, because a lot of my sales strategy is to empower. Like, it's completely different to what I've been taught over the years, like, and I said to her, I was like, did you feel like I was being sleazy at all when I was with you? And she was like, no, not at all. And it's like, because there's also that, like, authenticity piece, it's so incredibly important. I'd love to know from you, like, where are some of the pieces or places where people get it wrong in sales, and they blame the marketing, or they'll blame their strategy, when it might actually be a sales process? Because one thing I often see is, like, with clients, when we do the review process of their launch and, like, what they've walked through, it's like, well, hold on, you got this many conversions here, that bit worked. You got this many here, that bit worked. You got this many here, that bit worked. But this next bit, it didn't work. There was something here that, might have shifted. What is the things that you see along the way that often fuck it up for people? And I say that in like, because there's always room to fix it. But like, what are the pieces that you often like pull apart for people?
Yeah. So interesting actually that you say that and you were sharing about your client. Like it is absolutely a skill set. Like, and I think that we come into our business and we think that if we're passionate about something and we really value what we do, we can sell it. Whereas passion and excitement does not sell. Right. And so we've got to recognize,
right?
Yeah. One of the first things that comes to mind, it's like actually that, oh, but I really love what I do and I'm good at it. Like why are people not buying? And it's actually because you're focusing too much on yourself and not enough on the client. So we readdress that and actually learn the sales process so then you can feel confident in supporting a client through the decision-making process. And that way, again, it's got nothing to do with you at all. Like if you refocus your attention, it's not about what you give them and what you tell them. It's not about what's included. It's about why it's important for the customer to need it. And so if we get back to what's really important to them and you stay focused on the client, it's more just like a process of elimination and then invitation every step of the way. And so when we recognize that, then we can start to really put some effective processes in place for the business for sales. Secondly, I feel like actually just what you were saying before about your client, like I had someone last week and she was saying how I feel like I've come so far because now whenever I have something that does not work in business, instead of me going, oh, it must be me. They don't like me. There's something wrong with me. She's like, instead of doing that, I'm now focusing on, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what can I do differently? And allowing yourself to really recognize that because you're right, it's a massive skill set and there's so many parts of the business that you need to nail in order for you to be successful. And if you're getting into the victim mindset of like, oh, no, it's me, no one likes me, no one wants to buy from me, you're missing the point. You're missing the lesson that's there to serve you in how to improve things. And the thing is too, it also never goes away. Like when you're evolving and you're growing in your business, there's going to be new evolutions that you come through and there's going to be new points where you're like, oh, I'm terrible at this. This isn't working. What's wrong? Like all of these things that it recognizes that we either need to up-level our skill set, right? Up-level our mindset, or we need to figure out the how, because sometimes we're just so stuck in, if again, we go back to the victim mindset, it's not serving us. So what skill set do we need to develop in order to scale? And so I think every business goes through different evolution. So you go through growth phases, you know, before you're hitting 10K months and you master that. And then you usually have booked yourself out and then you're booked and then you're like, okay, well now how do I master one-to-many selling rather than one-to-one? Again, it's different. So as you're scaling and then you need to shift to one-to-many services, we need to adjust the sales strategy. We need to adjust the sales process. So it's those are the kind of things I feel like go wrong. And then the third thing I would possibly say would actually be not trusting your intuition. So as a woman, we have incredible connection to our intuition. And when it feels off, we need to pay attention to that. So I just see so many people getting redirected towards icky, disgusting sales tactics that they know in their bodies are telling them, this is gross, I don't want to do this. And they still do it. And it doesn't work because if it's not embodied, like I know that you love talking about, like if it's not embodied, it's not going to fucking work.
100%. But this is like, there's such a different way of women being in sales as opposed to like men and those sorts of things. And they're like, well, it worked for them. They're embodied in it. It should work for me. And it's like, the minute that there's a should, I'm like, there's a no, right? Like it's like really tapping into what's actually here. Like, because you said before something about, oh my God, it just left my brain. The offer, pardon?
I was going to say, like with the masculine and feminine side as well, like it's actually really paying attention to what you do really well as being feminine, like in your embodied feminine, because I teach feminine sales rather than masculine sales because I come from corporate. We were taught hardcore masculine, like push, like there's no such thing as an objection. Like it was hardcore. So I was like, well, I don't want to do it that way. I also want to lean into trusting my own intuition and finding a more empowered way to sell. And so I teach feminine sales from a place of trusting your intuition, focusing on connection and relationships and lifting people up rather than tearing people down. It does not feel good to sell through fear or shame. It does not feel good to pressure people into fucking buying. It only feels good to invite people in and let it be their decision. right? Whereas sales get such a bad rap because we've been taught masculine ways of selling. And yeah, it does actually work for men, which sucks, right? So, but who knows for how long. But like if we come back to, okay, well, what's my strength? What can I do? And often with women, it's the connection, the relationships and caring. Like that's what women are really wanting. And it's like, how simple of that is it's like, how do we just bring the sales process to come back to caring about our customers and holding space for our customer to make a decision and not get caught up in whether they're going to say yes or no. If you're on a sales call and you're so worried about them saying yes or no, you're in scarcity. You're actually not embodied. You're not holding space for that person. If you're so hardcore in scarcity that you'll probably end up taking that client on, even if they're not the right fit, because you really need that sale, that's pulling you out of your full feminine energy.
It's the whole business when you take the wrong client on, right? Like I talk about this all the time. Like if you're playing from that space, you could have had 3 people sitting there who were aligned that wanted to come in, but now your frequency has been affected.
Yeah. Right? And then you take on the client that's the wrong fit, and guess what they bring with them? More clients that are the wrong fit.
Everything amplifies. I love this so much. My point that I forgot before has come back is like you really honed in on like they're rejecting the offer, not you, right? And it's like I think that's something like I really want to hone in on here, because when we talk about imposter syndrome in sales and what that actually means, that's usually the culprit of it, right? It's like most people are sitting there like, oh, they're going to say no to me. And it's like, what's the worst? No, if they say no, like they say no, like that's it. Your life doesn't change.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's allowing yourself to really work on like, why are you so caught up in the rejection piece? Because, and I'm actually working with someone in my masterminds at the moment around rejection therapy, because if you learn to actually be okay with the rejection and you stay present in the rejection, you will learn so much more from it rather than running from it. And so many people are so fearful of the rejection that they don't even allow themselves to be an option. So they're counting themselves out of the race before they even allow themselves to be seen. So I see this with self-sabotaging behavior a lot. And I was talking to a client about this morning around like the fear of getting it wrong or the fear of being seen is so huge that she's not even letting herself be seen as an option for a client to work with. So she's not showing up on social media, not promoting herself. And like you're counting yourself out of the race before, and you're letting people go to other people that are probably less qualified than you because you're so fearful of the no. Whereas the no is not if you need to take the power out of the no, get more no so it's not as bad of a thing, and also work on your money mindset so you're not stuck in the scarcity of it, because that's most likely what's driving it. We're so fearful you don't know where your next client's going to come from, so that no feels more devastating than if it was just like, okay, you're not right now. That's okay. But you're right. Sorry, what were you getting back to your question before, around like the offer. You're right. Like the client is actually saying no to the offer. So how can we learn from that? How can we, digest like our sales process and go, well, what worked, what didn't work? Where did I get off the wrong track? Where did I maybe ask the wrong question? Or did I not really uncover what was really important to that customer? Or how did the offer not meet her needs? Right. And so working on your offer and getting that right is really key to creating that consistent income and making something that's really irresistible, so people really are like, oh my God, that's everything I need. Like that's everything, right? We've got to make it so worthwhile for people to say yes to, and fully embody and own your worth in that space, because the imposter syndrome stuff does come up to play. But if you're separating your own self-worth from your business, which is where that starts, because if your self-worth is so tied into the money that you make, the clients that you work with, the business succeeding or not succeeding, and you're so stressed about people saying no to you, that's affecting your self-worth. Whereas you need to look at your offer as a completely separate entity, and it is valuable on its own, and it delivers value, and it is worth value. So charging for it is worthwhile, and allowing yourself to go, okay, how can I believe in the offer, believe in the message, believe in the delivery, to believe in the service that I'm offering here enough for me to feel confident in selling it, right? Yeah. So I remember like years and years and years ago when I was in a sales role, I remember a manager saying to me, like, if you had the cure for cancer, how often would you talk about it? And I was like, oh my God, like all the time, right? Like I'd be telling everybody that I came into contact with, I'd be telling them. And then she was like, that's how confidently you need to be selling yourself. And I was like, okay, now I get it. And so whereas we just don't do that. We don't back ourselves enough. And so often what we need to do to overcome a little bit of the imposter syndrome at that point is actually uncover the value of the offer based on your customer's perspective, not yours. right? Because you will always most likely downgrade it or devalue it because it's easy for you, or you've done it so many times before, or you actually wouldn't pay for it. Like sometimes it's that. It's like, well, you wouldn't pay for it because you could do it easily. So of course you don't value it as much. So allowing yourself to unpack it from your client's perspective, so then you really do see the value in it and recognize that your client needs it. If they could do it themselves, they would have done it already. The reason they want to pay for it is because they value it and it's worth something.
Yeah, I think it's really important too to hone in on that. Like, I remember when I was a personal trainer, like way back when, I would be like, I'm not paying for a personal trainer, I am one, right? And what I realized towards like the later years in my business, I was like, I only actually get better when I have a trainer myself, right? And so it's like, it's that piece of really like, are you the embodiment of what you're trying to sell as well? And so a lot of people I personally find is like the reason why, like, just say they're a coach for relationships or something like that, and they're trying to sell their programs and they're trying to sell stuff, but they've never actually looked at their own shadows. They've never actually allowed themselves to go deeper with it. And it's like, well, hold on a second, there's also that element that's lingering in the background. If you don't value it, chances are the power to sell it is not going to uphold.
100%, because people can feel that. They feel it. They feel it from so many different ways. So it can be felt from the lack of embodiment. They just felt, you can feel or you see the incongruency. Like there's just something that's just not the right fit. There's something just not right. You're not sure what it is, but you just can't put your finger on it. There's just something not right. Or secondly, if you're selling, so whether you're selling online or whether you're in like on camera or whether you're selling over the phone, people can hear the uncertainty in your voice. They can see the uncertainty because you're not fully backing yourself. As much as it might feel like you're, tapping into a bit of bravado or a bit of fake confidence, is still something incongruent, right?
Yeah.
So figuring out like those, taking the time to actually do that inner work makes such a big difference. Why I teach the mindset side, because if you're not willing to actually look at it, like I was saying to a client actually last week about it, and she recognized that we were doing some masculine and feminine work, and she recognized that she was like, oh, I'm favoring all the masculine, but I'm not actually honoring the feminine. And I was like, well, how is that actually showing up in your business? And she was like, well, I'm pushing, and I'm not actually trusting in anything. I'm not trusting it'll work. I'm not trusting that what the people are out there that want to buy what I have to offer. I'm not trusting that this action, this effort that I'm putting in is actually going to reap the rewards. Actually not believing in it at all, but I'm pushing because that's what I should be doing. I'm telling myself that's what I should be doing. And I was like, and that's exactly why it's not working.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to have that embodiment piece first. You've got to have the trust and the honoring of the feminine. Otherwise the masculine action just does nothing.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like they work universally, like, right? They have to come together. And I think when you start to look at this from a bigger landscape as well, right? It's like a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm just going to put all my eggs in one basket and like just go only one way. What do you find when people like just say, look, I'm a little bit biased here because I play in the realm of all the things, but I have I see a lot of people who are like anti DMs, anti this way of marketing, anti that way of marketing, anti this. Like, what are your thoughts on that conversation?
Well, I actually look at it from a consumer behavior perspective and human behavior perspective, and look at what your strengths are as a human being, and then explore, well, what does the customer need and how do they want to be connected with? I'm not anti anything, to be honest, because for different elements of different types of business, even there are different strategies for different situations. So like even this morning I was running a sales training for a sales team, and their strategy is going to be completely different to what I give a business owner. And so again, it might be completely different for a business owner who's working with other business owners compared to a business owner that's selling to a customer. It's very different. So I'm not really anti anything. I'm like, let's look at the process and let's look at the strategy and let's look at like also how it feels for the client, actually for the person who's going to be selling it. Because if you're already, because it's tapping into like, what's the difference between, am I fearful of taking this action, or is it actually completely out of alignment for me? Like tapping in, because, and I was saying this to a client this morning, we were mapping out her next strategy, and she was like, I'm just so against sales calls. And I was like, but why? Like, let's actually just unpack why. Are you fearful of them? Do you not know the process? Don't have the skill that you need to develop? Or like, why? Like, and she was like, well, actually, it really drains my energy and I actually want to sell in a different way. And I was like, great, we can do that. And that just means that you're going to have to show up online and give more value. And that's all different. And you can sell differently and have a different strategy, but figure out what it is. Is it from a place of fear? or is it from a place of out of alignment? Because all the strategies can work if you're backing them with the right alignment. So figuring out what's going to work well for you, because sometimes deep down your body will be like, no, hell no, I'm not doing that. And you've got to honor it. You've got to honor it. And then, but the fear, I believe, shows up in a different way. So I feel like there's like this gut knowing, and you'll have this like, because I'm also trained in embraining, which is actually understanding the different neural networks in your body and how we have our brain, which is obviously a neural network which communicates with us. We also have our heart, which is a neural network. We have our gut, we have our sexual organs, and we have our autonomic nervous system. And they're all communicating with us. And if we allow ourselves to really tap into different parts, it can serve us in so many ways. So I'm a big believer that your gut will tell you if it's a yes or a no, and like paying attention to that. But if your heart's not in it, then it still won't work. So paying attention to those kind of internal cues to support the action, because there's going to be a difference between like your a yes and a no out of alignment compared to fear. Fear is more felt in the top half of your chest. So if it's coming from a place of fear, then we address that and go, well, actually, why do you fear it? Are you worried about the rejection? Are you worried about seeming salesy or sleazy? Are you worried about like whatever it might be? Like we need to unpack what that is, because it could be just a lack of skill, lack of education, a different belief system that we can shift, and then you are in alignment with that action. So just figuring out like there's so many different plays. There's so many 50 million ways you can do a business, right? So it's like figuring out what feels good for you and then trusting whether it's a feel good compared to a fear.
Yeah, I love that so much, and let's just put a real cap on that. Like this is something that's really like in the online space, there's a lot of people who hide behind the spiritual side of this, right? And like sometimes like they'll go like, oh, I'm just waiting for God to tell me, or I'm just waiting for something. And it's like, no, bitch, you're fucking scared. Like just own it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and it's not to discriminate or to put people down, but like, when we actually can get in touch with what that is, that's when we start to move the needle forward.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. And I kind of feel, I was talking about this actually on the weekend at the retreat, like balancing the masculine and feminine, that some people can be so far in their feminine that they can be like so responsive to their emotions.
Yeah.
Right? So in their emotions that they can be like, oh, but I'm not feeling it. I've got to feel it. And like actually, usually big scary action that will get you the results, you don't feel it and you're not comfortable and you're scared, like, and you don't want to take the action. That's what's actually showing you where you need to grow and where you need to stretch. So I'm a big believer too of like backing yourself with like what you say you're going to do and taking that big scary action and knowing that fear is part of the process. So if you're not willing to feel it and take the action anyway, you'll stay exactly where you are.
Yeah, it's so funny. That same client I was talking about with the fear of being seen, like we'd gone through the whole somatic process, and then I was like, now your remedy is doing the damn thing.
Yeah, you need evidence. You need proof.
Yeah, like
action and get new proof. Otherwise, your brain will stay stuck in the fear.
100%. It's so potent. I love this. You and I are very much in alignment with sales and how we do things. It's so great. Okay, so I am mindful of time, and I have one big question that I ask all of my guests, because I think it's imperative that everybody has this question asked them at least once in their lifetime. If this was the last time that anyone was to ever hear you say anything, what would it be that you would want them to hear?
That the imposter syndrome only exists if you give it power, and it can actually be your superpower if you let it. If you seek it out, it can be the best opportunity for growth, and it can help you create an incredible, extraordinary life if you let it guide you to places that you've never stretched into before.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So good. And it's so true too, right? Because I always say the imposter syndrome is there because we care.
Yeah.
Right? So cool. I've loved this conversation. What do you have coming up so people can find you and know how to get in your world and all the things?
So depending on when the episode comes out, I hang out most on Instagram. So come and hang out with me on Instagram. So you can find me at Christine Corcoran _coach. I have a new book coming out in the new year all about the imposter syndrome and how to turn it into your superpower. And I run a sales program and a mastermind. So if you're keen for support and you really want to level up every element of your mindset and your strategy, then I can definitely support you.
So fucking Good. Amazing. All your links will be in the show notes. So I deeply appreciate you coming on and just sharing your wisdom. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved our conversation. We're definitely in alignment.
So good. So good. Thank you so much. Embodied Business.